Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of A Coffee with Chris, the social media show that helps you create impact. As always, brought to you in association with our charity partners, Big C, who help local people affected by cancer, and Blue Bear Coffee, replacing your business's coffee to help children that have experienced human trafficking. Today, I'm sipping on their Walter, ready for the pronunciation, 𝗖𝗵𝗿𝗲𝗲 blend from Brazil. It is unbelievably tasty, and I'd recommend, if you don't buy online, go and check out their coffee shop on Tombland in Norwich and grab yourself a bag for your business to try. Of course, this show is also proudly sponsored by Oliver Hill of Hill Coaching Company, Limitless Film and Media, Mindset HR, and the wonderful Wingfield Consultants. Now, that's the formalities done and out of the way. I am really excited today to be joined by the managing director of Totally Branded, Taylor Tassie. Totally Branded are an experienced promotional merchandise and branded corporate gift supplier based in Swartham, Norfolk. Taylor, let's start with the why, because I want to ask you today, why did you start documenting your Totally Branded business journey on social media?
Well, I think ultimately I've always been torn between two reasons, and if I'm honest, I've not quite worked out what the real reason is yet. I'm torn between, part of me started when my dad, who is within the business, regularly said to me, Tay, you really should write down these mental days that happen, like these stories that in years to come you'll look back and laugh about, but you know, people just won't believe. And I was like, oh, I haven't really got the time, Dad, to start writing things down. I'm not very, I wasn't very into that at the time. So there was part of me that wanted to start recording things and documenting it. But it was this other part of me that was like, people need to know that this is not as glorious and sexy as the world proclaims it to be. Because everything I've been through to get to where we are today is so far from what I expected it to be like, the journey. And I think that there is this glorification of entrepreneurship and building businesses that's starting to be ingrained in people from even at school. And I think a lot more people need to have their eyes opened as to what they're going into, and actually understand that maybe being that entrepreneur number one, the heart carrying the world on your shoulders, isn't for everyone. Maybe you could earn and have a very nice life and feel just as inspired and energized every day by being a right-hand man or a left-hand lady or something along those lines in a startup and being part of something special, as opposed to trying to carry the world on your shoulders. Because I do often think, if I knew what I knew now, would I have gone through all of that? And I think a lot of people go, oh yeah, I always knew it would be hard. I never doubted it for a second. I regularly ask myself why. And I think it frustrates me when a lot of people, when I meet people and they say, oh, it's going so well, wow, you should be so proud. And I want people to know the pain that it takes. I think too many people glorify it. And yeah, I think it's a long answer to a quick question, but I think it's important that.
It is massively, Taylor. And thank you, by the way. I really appreciate your candor there and being so transparent, which is obviously a big part of what you do when it comes to documenting your business leadership journey on social media. I love the fact that it's predominantly value driven. I think that's incredibly powerful, and that really comes across in your approach and your delivery. And we're going to go into, the strategy behind it and the outcomes of doing it later on, because I think many businesses and business leaders should follow your lead on this for sure. But I'm so with you, and I'm so inspired by that, Taylor, because I think so many young business owners, especially, they find it sexy, don't they? It's like, oh yeah, entrepreneur, that's cool. I can put it in my Instagram bio, and there's so much pain that comes with the reward, and that's not necessarily to say you want to try to put people off, but I respect you massively for not bowing down to the hustle porn or hustle culture and the grind thing over and over, and sharing pictures of Porsches and stuff on your socials. You're showing the real stuff. So wanted to give you kudos for that. And Taylor, I do want to ask you though, like, why was it so important for you to share the raw, authentic, honest parts of your business journey and not just the polished, preened parts, because many business owners are getting good now at creating polished content. They know how, they know where, they know why, video teams, etc. You've obviously got the tech, but I'm really intrigued as to kind of why you show not just the highlights reel, you show the other stuff too.
I think it was, I think the core for me is it's almost because in the past it's really affected me, because I have been that person, especially at sort of, I got into business at, 17, 18 years old. So I think at that point I was very influenced by the YouTube vloggers and the LinkedIn, warriors it was this real, wow, this is so glamorous and overnight it's going to explode and you're going to have this great life and you just have great people that work with you. And if you just work 24 hours a day, it'll all come to you. And I think I drove myself into almost the ground mentally on more than one occasion and really did suffer and I was influenced, if I'm honest, at that young age. And I became really frustrated with myself and I nearly sort of gave in. I nearly gave up quite early on because I thought, I'm not wired this way. It's not for me. And I think that a big part of why I want to be so brutally honest is I want people to understand. It does frustrate me when I speak to some people that are 20 steps ahead of where we currently are, much, much bigger, 100 million plus revenue businesses with hundreds, thousands of staff. And I spend time with them and they tell me brutally, honestly, how tough, I've sat in cars with people that are going through it. You can't imagine the phone calls they're receiving in the car of stuff 20 times what I have to deal with. And they don't, but then you log on to LinkedIn and they're just talking about we've just closed this, we've just done this, we're at this trade show, and it's all the polished, beautiful stuff that makes everyone go, wow, how are they doing it? They're on fire. Little do you know that back in the office, they are in a really, really tough spot. And there's some, there's all the usual. There's cash flow strains, there's HR problems, there's someone threatening to sue them. They don't know how to handle a tough member of staff. They're not sure how they're going to make payroll. I mean, these are big companies that I've spent time with. And I actually find it quite frustrating because as somebody just starting out, you doubt yourself when you see all this polished stuff, but none of the rough. It really, really gets on my goat, if I'm honest, because I think that could really damage a young person, or even not even just a young person, but anybody starting out in their business journey. And I think they think, oh, this can't be for me. Look at all these failures I'm having. That is so normal, no matter what level you're at. And if anything, the challenges and the stress and that, in my opinion, and spending time with people further ahead than us, that doesn't change. And I think more people need to know that before being on this hamster wheel, chasing, in a year, once we get here, once we've got another 10 people, once we've got another million turnover, everything will be merry. Because I've learned too many times that no matter how much we keep growing, those problems don't change. They just change their style. They wear a different outfit, but they still are there.
Yes,
it's you personally that's got to get better and get stronger, like a muscle. And that's what I try to get across in my content, is around improving you by growing and employing. It's not going to solve all of the challenges,
Yes. Amazing stuff, Taylor. Thank you for sharing that. So with you. Do you know the thing that I'm fearing here, Taylor, is, obviously this whole discussion around, building in public and sharing your journey on social media, and people will be listening back, watching live, and they'll be thinking, it's all right for Taylor. He's got a team of people. He's got fancy technology. And so I think it's really important that we talk about the starting steps, because I'm sure you'll be au fait with Gary Vaynerchuk, Taylor, and he had D-Rock, his cameraman, following around all of the time and things like that. And would be really intrigued to kind of see under the bonnet of your business, if you don't mind, Taylor. I'm sure you won't, because you're transparent. That's why you've got so much trust and respect, local and beyond. So just share a bit about the starting steps, Taylor. How did you get started, and how can other business leaders get started with sharing more of their journey in public on social media?
Yeah, I started with a little Osmo gimbal. I think it was £120, and I started my first sort of my second to my sort of 20th vlog on YouTube was all filmed by me on my tripod with on my iPhone, and I edited it on a Sunday. I'd spend the whole of Sunday editing it. You know, I had a team of 50 people, and you know, I still did that myself because that's, I believe, how you should start. And interestingly, some of our highest viewed content to this day was stuff that was done so raw, so honest, and pieced together, you know, on the cheap with a tripod, but just with pure value and real heartfelt intent and raw honesty. And that's what people want. As long as, you know, I think one thing they won't compromise on is the sound. If the sound is right, but and what they're actually hearing is of value and is honest and raw and not too polished, I'm seeing in our data that's what's a lot more, people prefer it. They don't like the false. They don't like the too polished and the shiny. So our first thing, I started very much like that, and it got to a point where I just couldn't sustain it. Because I'd have a tough week, I had challenges, and I just wouldn't be consistent with filming. And what we found is that some of the gold that was going on, I'd start a meeting, I'd go, oh, look, guys, sorry, I just need to set the tripod up at the beginning. And it would be like a meeting with the bank or a meeting with I just couldn't do it. And so when we started to feel like this is really adding value to people, and it is really, the comments we're getting, we couldn't ignore it. You know, we'd go to an event and people would approach us and say how much they watched it, and we're like, what? And I think at that point was when we invested. But for a year, we didn't do anything. It was just me in my spare time editing it and filming what I could in the moment on my iPhone.
Real again, Taylor. Thank you. Do you know, I've just thought of something actually, which is the boardroom situation. And this will be another challenge, and people will be thinking it. So let's kind of hit it straight on, Taylor. People will be thinking, oh, I can't do that. I'll get pushed back by this person, by that person. That person won't like it. He'll say no. He won't be happy with that. So how did you deal with the internal buy-in? Because something that we talk about at Reef Social Media is it's all very well and good doing social media and getting your brand, your business, your personal brand out there. But if you don't have a content culture within your organization, it's only going to get up to a certain level. So how did you get buy-in from the key stakeholders within your business and also your team members?
There was definitely pushback. You hit the nail on the head. I remember within the first few days of me saying, right, I'm filming this, the looks said it all. They didn't need to speak. It was just, what is he doing? And then probably about a month or so in, we'd put some videos out, and then we'd have senior leadership team meetings, and I remember it came up in one of the sort of SWOT analysis that we were doing for the quarter, as a weakness and a threat from the rest of the senior team. Felt that it was a threat that we were being very open and honest about the internal workings of our business, and it was also a weakness that my time was being more and more consumed by creating content. And I just had to say, guys, I passionately believe that we need to be doing this. And if I had my way, every person in the senior team would be doing it. And I just trust me, you know, we have to do this. You know, we can't debate it. Just believe that this will pay off. But this is a 10-year journey. But this is long term. This is long term for us, and it also makes me mentally feel good. Because I feel like I'm giving back to the 18-year-old that needed to see this. So it was a double-edged thing, and I think that, you know, I was very fortunate that after a while, just gradually, very slowly, it warmed up. And then we went to an event. We went to a trade show, and a lot of the senior team were there with me, and there was people, just strangers, coming up to us and saying, oh, I've seen you on the vlog, how so-and-so did it, I love it, oh, really? So much, I took so much away from it. And they were talking like they knew our whole business. They were, you know, they knew the new Trev, my dad, and they said, oh, it's great when he's on there a bit more. And I remember the team was standing around me. You could tell they were like, wow, this is quite like mental. And even I was took back, but it was at that point, I think we knew this is really powerful. And the trust that we gave off from that, because it's just us, we're not hiding, we're not dressing it up. That's who we are.
So taking the leap is the message, Taylor. Sorry to interrupt you there. Taking the leap is the message, because you'll see the return on your investment, your time come, and it compounds, right? It gets bigger and better as you go. I'd be really intrigued to ask you, Taylor, about the comeback you've had off the back of building in public or sharing more on social media, particularly on LinkedIn. I'm assuming you've won new business through this method. I'm assuming you've improved trust with your prospects. I'm assuming that it's helped you build more rapport with your team members. They feel more valued, but that's my words, not yours. What have been the impact? I'm fascinated to know.
Yeah, for sure. I think one thing that I would say is we are still very early on in the journey as I see it. So, I've been doing this properly for about a year and a half, 2 years. I see this as 10 years, almost close your eyes and discuss it in 10 years. But what I would say, that's how I manage my own expectations, and I manage the expectations of the senior team. What I have been surprised about is how quickly things I've been shooting off of this. So there was one example just recently. I had a message on LinkedIn, direct message one evening, I think it was a Sunday night. And it said something along the lines of, hi, Taylor, been following you for a while, taking so much value from what you've done. I just want to say thank you. I just wanted you to know that I've just placed an order on your website for 10,000 tote bags, just off the back of following you for a while. And we felt there was no one else that we would like to use. And that was just, whoa. And I remember screenshotting and sending it to the team on WhatsApp. It just blew me away, to be honest. It was that was a real moment where I was, okay, this is powerful. And that wasn't even I've submitted an inquiry. That was, I've uploaded my artwork. I've paid £10,000 worth of tote bags on your website. The order's placed. I just wanted you to know that it's because of the value you've delivered. I felt compelled to provide that business to you, and that really sort of took me back.
It's amazing. Do you know what, though? In a non-arrogant way, Taylor, I'm not surprised. And this is, I must admit, it's a little bit selfish me getting you on, because I know this to be true. Because the more you present yourself on camera, the more of your journey that you share, the more of the honest parts that you share, it increases trust so much faster with your prospects. And now, as we speak, and actually last year too, but even more this year and beyond, things like TikTok Shop and live shopping and live broadcasting like we're doing today, that's the stuff that really turns the dial. So I'm so impressed, and I'm not surprised as well. Has it helped yet, or do you forecast it will help with recruitment and culture in terms of the businesses as well, Taylor? Because some of the people that I know that have done it for a number of years, unfortunately not so much in the UK, across the pond in America, is that they've said it's really helped candidates understand what it not just looks like, but feels like to be a part of the business. Oh, I could sit over there with that team member, or is that the case in your business yet?
So that's been a consequence, if you like, that hadn't even entered my sphere 2 years ago. But actually my motive has started to, and this is in the last sort of 3 or 4 months, I'd say, it's really clicked for me. That actually it's become less about winning business for me on the platforms. It's actually been, with the level that we're trying to go to and the vision we've got, we know that the only way we can achieve our dreams and ambition is to find the best of the best, most incredible people, and not just CV people. We're talking like people with heart, like A grade. And what's really shone a light on that for me is I sat in on I've done 2 recently, 2 second interviews, And when I went into those meetings, I said to them, and it was worded differently each time, but I said, "Oh, hi, lovely to meet you. I'm Taylor." And the lady said, "Oh, yeah, I know. I watched the YouTube." And I was like, wow, okay. And it was at that moment that it unlocked, because I thought, I don't need to say it. She knows what we're about. She knows what we're trying to do. She knows how I operate. She knows how fast paced we are. She knows the inner workings of what we're doing. And I thought, wow, this is because we need to attract the right people for the culture that we're trying to build here. And I think that is just, I'm trying to now create almost like a magnet. And our next evolution of our business is going to be building out a really strong, expansive senior leadership team. And so we want to attract the best of the best senior leaders. And I think we want to attract the right people that fit with our DNA, our cultural fit. And if they're seeing me project that every day, and I can see them, they're following me in the industry, they're leaving and they're sort of liking the odd post here and there, letting me know that they're there. And I think that's amazing, because then if they feel that they want to be a part of what I'm shouting about, they've qualified me. They know what I'm about and they know my values. And I think it's become more and more about a recruitment tool for the longer term for me.
I was going to use that exact word, magnet, Taylor, and we've had a couple of people come on, fantastic guests, talking about building your employer brand on social media, through social media, and what you do is rocket fuel for that, right? And I love the idea of they can see whether they're a bit of you can see whether they're a bit of them, because the way that you're broadcasting, projecting how you are, and there's that bit of a cringy quote, but your vibe attracts your tribe, right? And I think that you can really attract day players like that. Taylor, I must just go back, rewind a little bit, back to the how rather than the return on investment, the outcome. How do you decide in your content what's worth sharing publicly? Like, do you just go off your gut, or do you / your team have a bit of a sense check? Do you have like a filter system or a process, or literally does everything go out?
No, so I've gone through different stages, Chris, where sometimes I get to the point of about to hit post, and I'm going to be honest, as much as people preach, just put it out there, there are some things I think you've not got that clear enough in your head, Tay, and it's not cemented enough there for me to clearly annotate what I mean in my brain. And so I save a lot of things in my iPhone notes, because the way I produce a lot of my content on LinkedIn is I don't really have a structure or the way I do it. It's pure from the heart. So I will have a day, or I'll be in the midst of the day, and something will happen or something will go on in my brain that I then put into a note, and then I just brain dump, which is why a lot of the time people message me, friends, and it's very kind of them, but I'm just not bothered. But a lot of time friends will message me, "I tell you, made a spelling mistake there, you've done that." But I'm not, because I'm not doing it for polished. I'm doing it because I'm just I haven't got the time to worry about having a schedule and doing it all polished. It's just get it out there. So, but I do often flesh something out in the moment when emotion can be high and that sort of stuff. And then I sort of go, just park that for a minute, take it. Will add value to someone, but equally, if this, I've got to think about the optics of for the bigger picture of, because I've just had a really obscure meeting with someone, might they see this and it be offensive to them, because it's not. I have to be aware of how my content impacts people around me's lives, and I think that as much as I feel I've got so much I could share, I am very mindful of oversharing, not because I've got anything that I'm not, but I'm an open book. My team know that, and people around me know that. But I'm becoming more and more conscious of what I share that impacts someone else, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense, Taylor. I would just highly recommend that if anyone's, in your position or wants to develop a strategy, a process, go on this journey of building in public like you have, Taylor, I just think it's always worth pushing it through at least one person and getting their eyes on it, just to sense check, because on one hand, and you've used that word, you know, emotion, when you feel something in the moment on the day, it's the heart, you're like, oh yeah, that was good, or I feel passionately about this. But actually running it through just one other person, I think, is okay. I think too many key stakeholders, I would disagree with that, because I think it massively slows you down, and then you're in perfection over execution, and you do need to get more towards execution and perfection. But it sounds like, Taylor, you're in a really healthy space now where your dial has come a little bit more in the middle, but that's going to be natural, right, with the growth of your business.
Yeah, and I'm lucky on the vlogs, on the YouTube and the video content, I have Sam who looks after all of that. So I'm very fortunate that he will say to me, "Taylor, that's you can't put that out. You know, that's too raw." You know, that's a big thing. And so there is that person. The LinkedIn and the written stuff is where it's true. There's no filter there, and that's where I have to, like you say, that dial has to be stabilized a little bit.
Taylor, if you could go back in time now, say right back to the beginning. So you said you've been doing it for what, a year and a half? Did you say earlier on in the conversation?
Yeah, a year and a half, coming up at that time now.
So if you could go back to that point in time, what would you say to Taylor about to go on that journey? What would you do differently now, having had all of the learnings that you've had over the last year and a half?
I think what I would say, if I could go back, and hindsight's a wonderful thing, I would have gone more aggressively quicker.
Oh, is in frequency, Taylor?
Yeah, I would have prioritized it a lot more. I would have, because what I've done over the last year and a half is I haven't been consistent. I've had moments where I start and then a crisis is happening, and the first thing for me to fall is the content, because you know, it's my release. I see it as quite a selfish part of my time, because I get a kick out of it. It allows me to create connections and friends, and you know, as I say, we're not doing it to track ROI as such. So it's tough in that respect at the moment. So, but what I would do is, knowing what I know now, is I would have been a lot more into it, rather than sort of flirting with it and just sort of going when I had a minute, and then I'm out for a month, then I'm back. I think I would have been a lot more consistent, and I would have put the investment in straight away had I know what it can do.
Yeah.
Because I do think that as much as we did it quite raw, we did it to a good enough standard where the sound was good, that the you know, we filmed in 4K from day one. I do think you've got to have some bare necessities, because in this day and age, I do think people do pick up on that.
Yeah, no, I think that's brilliant. Thank you. I absolutely agree with you regarding, you know, going all in and consistency. I think the only thing that I would not positively challenge, I'm not disagreeing at all. The only thing I'd positively challenge is maybe to begin with, people see going all in as in like 4 or 5 videos a week. They'll be like, oh my God, I can't do that. So that's completely so yeah. So would your advice maybe, Taylor, to those people be more just like, start by just documenting everything, filming everything and banking it, and then you can choose your frequency, or not? Or would you disagree with me?
No, I totally agree. I think that's, but I think be consistent with yourself. And so when it needs to go out, because we fell into this trap where we put ourselves under so much pressure, because we said we're going to put something out weekly on the YouTube. And what happened there is we were then, some weeks are just boring. They're just normal weeks where I'm at my desk in the trenches, just fighting to keep alive. And that is the reality of some weeks. They're not going around to trade shows and going to look at a property and doing this. That's not every week. It might be 1 in every 3. And so we put ourselves under this pressure of, we've got to come up with something every week. And in the end, I said to Sam and I said, this is getting silly. We're talking about, do we need to almost fabricate how exciting the week's been just to keep?
It's not real.
And at that point we said, enough's enough. If it's not true and it's not the facts, you know, we're not doing this. So we just removed any, and some people didn't like it. We got a little bit of kickback at the time, but it goes out when we've got enough where we feel it's worth somebody's eyeballs to invest the time and watch that. But what I would say is, and on your point there, what I mean by being consistent and going, if you're going to do it, don't record today and then don't do it for another month, and then post on LinkedIn today and then don't do anything for 3 months. be consistent with yourself and just set that. That's the first point. But don't just post stuff for posting stuff's sake. I think that's the big message. It's being consistent with yourself.
Yeah.
I think is my key, and that's where I've gone wrong in the past.
Here, Taylor. I feel like clapping you. Talk to me about Totally Branded. Give yourself a business plug, and where can people see all of your wonderful content?
Yeah, so I've got my YouTube channel, which is Taylor Tassie. So that's where we put a vlog out, which is normally about half an hour long, behind the scenes, and that's documenting, day in the life of behind the scenes of Totally Branded and the other businesses that we're kind of getting off the ground at the moment. And then obviously my LinkedIn, which is where I just download what's on my mind, what's in my heart at that moment, and the trials and tribulations, and just be honest about the sort of hurdles that we go through so that it's more normalized.
Love it. Taylor, thank you so much for your time, wisdom, tips and tricks today. I really appreciate it, sir.
Thank you for having me on. Really enjoyed the conversation.
And thank you so much to everyone watching live, watching back, listening back. If you've enjoyed this conversation, do give it a thumbs up on YouTube, a 5-star review on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, all of that stuff. And hey, if you've got a question for Taylor, why not? He's not agreed to this, but I'm roping him into it. Why not tag him in the comments? And I'm sure that he will try and get back to you as soon as he can regarding the benefits of building in public on social media. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in to A Coffee with Chris, and I'll see you this time next week for another one.